Hi, my name is Spencer Brown, and this is Module 13, my case study for EDL 851. So in this case study, the title was A Good Teacher Turns Bad. And so a little background on what's going on. The principal is a third-year principal. The school's a rural community with pretty strong data in terms of assessments and attendance and a few behavior issues. And really there just seems to be fairly few concerns altogether. And although it is rural, I said it's one of 3 elementary schools, so it is I guess for Kansas, fairly sizable district. And then the other background we need to know is about Mrs. Horton, and so she is kind of the subject of this story. She's definitely a proven professional, so we see in the story she was Teacher of the Year at one point. She's been around for a while. She's done some great things. She comes back from spring break and all of a sudden seems to be different. She seems to start having a lot more conflicts with staff and with students. The story is maybe there's some home issues going on, and maybe now we're seeing that foster into school issues. And then kind of the climax of the story is when a parent comes in to meet with her, and she lashes out right in front of the principal at the parent very early in the meeting. So what I know is first of all that Miss Horton is a strong teacher. She doesn't become Teacher of the Year because she doesn't understand how to teach. She has some strengths, and I need to keep that in mind as I move forward. And obviously the ultimate goal would be to return her to that state that earned her Teacher of the Year. I know that conflicts have risen on all levels, from community members calling board members and having issues with how she's treating their kids, parents requesting conferences with her to see what is going on in the class, and even conflict within the staff. So I talked a little bit about her bad-mouthing the new reading curriculum and ostracizing those who said that they did like it, which is a serious issue. All of these are serious issues. So obviously things have elevated really quickly. And again, it's based, the belief is that it's based on some home issues. And again, it climaxes and it becomes very clear to the principal when the anger is just unhinged on the parent in that meeting. What I need to know is first of all, I need to know about the safety of the kids. If some of the things that are being stated are 100% accurate, there's some serious issues for the well-being of the kids. She's lashing out on them constantly, like they seem to be claiming. That's a problem, and that can cause some serious issues with some self-efficacy of students. I obviously need to be present. So in order to ensure that safety, I need to make sure that I get feedback right away about what in the world is going on in the room, in the halls. I just need to get a more clear picture of what's happening. Again, I've seen one lash out, but the case study also said that when I was in rooms, I apparently didn't see anything that would indicate that kind of behavior. However, I need to continue to be in those rooms. I need to continue to be present in lots of situations to make sure that the students are treated in a respectful way and that they feel safe in whatever situation. I need to kind of look at the threads of the parent concern. Meaning, is there a common thread? Does she seem to be having issues with any? Is there only 2 or 3 students that she seems to be having a lot of issues with? Is she having issues with all of the kids? This is going to be really important when I start to think about how I'm going to handle the issue with the parent requesting for their kid to be removed from the class. Because if there's this level of issue with all the kids, I need to be very careful before all of the kids have now requested to leave the room. And that becomes a much larger issue, and obviously not a sustainable fix. I also need to understand what needs Mrs. Horton has, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later when I talk about my plan of action and meeting with her. Obviously I need to know what is the district's policy for plans of improvement. This isn't like all throughout this course we've seen how some legal issues can come to play, and so making sure that I'm taking appropriate steps that in the eyes of the district is going to be really important, because if we go to plan of improvement, unions are going to be involved and there's going to be some legalities that need to be taken care of. So my proposed plan is first find out those things I just mentioned that I need to know. It's really hard to move forward without understanding those variables that I just mentioned. But after that, I'm going to need to discuss options with the superintendent to make sure we're on the same page. Assuming everything that's come out about Mrs. Horton is the way that it's happening, my move would be to recommend a plan of improvement, and I would want the superintendent's support on that. The other piece there is potentially a leave of absence. If this is at a critical enough level where the kids are not feeling safe, then that's going to be an issue, and we need to think about whether Mrs. Horton needs to take some time to get herself healthy before returning to the classroom. So if it's reasonable, again, as earlier I talked about, looking at the thread of students with an issue with Mrs. Horton, if it's reasonable to believe that we can accommodate Mr. Stafford without kind of creating a big snowball of everyone trying to leave this room, then I think that is appropriate, certainly considering the nature of the meeting that he endured on our watch and kind of by our recommendation when we were the ones who set that up. I would need to start collecting data and documenting everything. So that means collecting what I know that's happened previously, as well as starting to document things moving forward. And I would need to begin to determine what observational improvement I want to see in Mrs. Horton. So my plan of action then would be to meet with Mrs. Horton. So I talked earlier about kind of figuring out her needs. I would ask her a lot of questions, try to understand what's going on from her perspective, why so many concerns are rising, why there seems to be so much conflict with the students, and is there a way that I can support her personally or professionally to try to remediate where she may see the issue be. The other thing I would suggest maybe for Mrs. Horton is trying to implement some micro teaching. So if you're unfamiliar with micro teaching, it's the bare bones of it is setting some goals, videoing yourself, analyzing your teaching, and seeing if you can meet those goals. It's possible that there's some blind spots in how Ms. Horton is treating her kids, and so if I could suggest some micro teaching in terms of improving her instruction, this may also have give her the open her eyes a little bit to how she's interacting with the kids. And then I would want to begin the plan of improvement. So the first thing I could think of for that measurable aspect of the plan of improvement is I'd like to measure the positive to negative feedback. I feel like the big issue here is the relationships with the students. And so if we start to aim for that goal of 4-to-1, 5-to-1, positive to negative interactions, that alone could really make some massive benefits for Mrs. Horton. I would want her to begin to record contact with parents. A bunch of parents have said they reached out to no avail, and so I want her to be recording this and showing that she is having contact with the parents so that I understand, yes, she's reaching out, doing what she needs to do there. So probably blind copying me on emails or documenting whatever phone calls she makes, but making sure that she's having that contact. And then obviously, like we talked about again throughout the course, is pairing up that evaluation system with professional learning opportunities. So if I'm going to talk to her about providing more positive to negative feedback, then I also need to provide her those opportunities to learn about that and how to increase those in a way that is authentic. There's a chance that maybe that is not the issue. there may be some places where she needs to even get some professional development on student expectations and some self-fulfilling prophecies. And so making sure that kids feel like the expectations are high for them in a healthy way as well. And then finally, and why I chose the file folders pictures, I would document everything. At this point, we're talking about potential for removal. And so I need to leave a very clear paper trail, as I know the union will be involved, and I need to clearly show why it is that Mrs. Horton is on this plan of improvement and her progress in it. So there's a fair amount of unresolved concerns here that kind of hinges to my plan. But first of all, the magnitude of conflicts. I still am not aware of if we're talking about a large number of kids that are having conflict or a large amount of conflict with a fewer amount of kids. And that does change how I would address some of the issues. Ms. Horton's well-being, that's why I put the elephant in the room, because there's this clear indication that there's some personal well-being issues there. But as an administrator, I can show that I care about her as an individual. But I also, there's that professional line that I need to be careful not to cross, and understanding that our vision and goal is the success of all students, and keeping that primary there in all of our conversations. I'm assuming the superintendent's going to support me in that plan of improvement and those measurable pieces I want to look for. If not, that really changes my whole plan of action here. And then obviously the current district's evaluation process, if they have one that they say, no, this is what we use, that could be a conflict, because it may be looking at instructional practices when that might not be the target. If she was teacher of the year, she probably has some strengths in instruction. It's more the teacher-student relationship from what I gather. So making sure that that fits in the evaluation process that the district may already have set out. I think I showed that success of every student was really important to me, based on trying to enhance those professional learning around those student relationships. We know self-fulfilling prophecy goes way back into the 60s in research. And so understanding that what teachers think of their kids goes a long way with them. And so making sure that Ms. Horton begins to foster those healthy relationships to ensure the success of those students is really important. I acknowledge that that's probably where the area is, being that she's probably fairly strong instructionally, again, if she received that Teacher of the Year award. And then parental contact is an evidence-based practice, and it's one that is another place that we would measure improvement for Ms. Horton. Student well-being, my first step that I stated was making sure that students have a safe and predictable environment. So I'm collecting the current data to say, again, what's the magnitude of the current issue, and making sure that my plan of improvement is measurable and appropriate. But as it stands, my plan of improvement is that positive to negative interaction to really foster some belief within the kids that that's more positive than negative. Looking for the thread of issues, I'm trying to figure out, is there a common thread of a place where I can really target to make the professional learning more appropriate and to really achieve the student well-being of the students that are most threatened right away. And then the professional learning around those student relationships, again, it's all about that student well-being. Finally, the instructional capacity of Mrs. Horton is really important. And so making sure, again, like we've learned all through this class, that professional learning being tied to that evaluation, and that it's clear and measurable, so that she sees the road being laid out before her, so she can, it's kind of like when John Hattie talks about self-reported grades of students, understanding what the goal is and where I'm at goes a long ways for improvement. The other piece that I wanted to bring up was this idea of micro-teaching. I think it's another place that I suggested something that could be really valuable. Having Mrs. Horton potentially watch her own instruction to improve her own instructional capacity and see some places that she could really hone in. I just want to say thanks for the semester, and thanks for watching my video.